Nigeria's annual inflation rate rose to 29.90% in January, up from 28.92% in December 2023, and that's according to the National Bureau of Statistics. Similarly, the country's debt profile has been on an upward surge. Individual finances are affected as well as the citizens continue to battle the highest cost of living crisis in the country's history. Economic experts have called for more creativity and deftness in financial management. We're now being joined by founder Ubunthu Group, Mamadou Toure, to discuss these challenges and how investment in real-world assets could be used to combat them. Many thanks for joining us on Newsday. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure and an honor.
Well, let's get right into it. What are the challenges of rising inflation and increasing debt for a developing nation like Nigeria?
Of course, rising inflation is affecting most of the population because it erodes their purchasing power, and you see the wealth created by such hard labor dwindling due to the depreciation of the currency. And in such context, creating value becomes very difficult, and it's imperative to find solutions that could help curb inflation and help the nation like Nigeria prosper. It's something that is an important outcome for not just the country, but also the whole continent, knowing that Nigeria is the biggest economy of the continent at this point. So we're looking at new innovative solutions that we've been preparing for years that prove to become quite urgent to deploy in a country and a continent that both are extremely rich in terms of assets, I would even say wealthy, but considered as poor, which is not real poverty, which is more illiquid. And as such, Ubuntu Tribe has developed tokenization as a service where we could effectively tokenize those assets. Think of Africa with a GDP of $2.7 trillion when the global GDP is $88 trillion. But even more so, the actual wealth of the African continent is estimated at more than $100 trillion. So how do we monetize this wealth to immediately be able to capture it and to get the Nigerian and African population to benefit from it? That's why we've developed tokenization as a service in tokenizing real-world assets. If you think of inflation in Nigeria, as you mentioned, that has rose in January by 29%. Now, what we have done, we don't just talk about real-world asset tokenization. We've done it, and we've decided to tokenize gold in particular with GIFT, Gold International Fungible Token, that allows any citizen with a mobile phone to purchase gold. The gift is equivalent to 1 milligram of gold, which is under 1,000 naira, in a context where not everyone can afford a kilo of gold, which is close to 10 million, but using tokenization of real-world asset and fractionalizing ownership allows democratization of access to those very key assets that can help fight against inflation and preserve people's wealth. If you think of gold, for instance, even more than the dollar, has raised compared to the naira over 12 months by 233%. And if you look at the past 5 years, gold has raised by 630 or 640% to the naira. So our strategy is effectively, why don't we ensure that any Nigerian or any African and citizen can be able to access to this asset that creates so much value and that Africa actually has a lot of. Remember that the African continent sits on 48% of the global gold deposit. In addition to that, if you look at the current situation of Nigeria, where there is a flight to the dollar, it puts a huge pressure on the financial system and on the trade deficit and the economy of the country, while using gold, which is accepted everywhere and also available in the country, actually performs much better and puts much less pressure on the central bank and the Nigerian economy, while at the same time allowing every citizen to create and preserve the wealth that they fought so hard to establish.
All right. Well, that's all quite interesting. But with inflation currently, the way we're seeing it in Nigeria, it's quite sharply on the rise. What are some of the biggest concerns for that, for specifically individuals and businesses?
Of course, the concern is the reduction of the purchasing power, but also the rise in price in terms of imports and so on, which kind of affect the competitiveness, but also significantly the savings of the people. That's why it's important by thinking of tokenizing real-world assets that appreciate. Think of real estate, right? Not everyone can afford a 10 million naira apartment, but if you tokenize real estate and fractionalize it, and people get a square meter or instead of 100 square meters, and real estate appreciates. Real estate and gold, for instance, have shown across history their resilience in terms of tough economic crisis, and as a result, this going that direction would also allow to share the wealth. Think of Nigeria also, who has significant amount reserves of oil and gas, but also solid minerals that are underground. Now, historically, it was complicated to monetize those assets because you had to wait to start extracting, and sometimes it would take 5 to 10 years until you see the value. But with the technology available today, whether it's satellite and tokenization of real-world asset, you can effectively put value to the asset without having to extract it, even if you apply a discount. Right, and then because you use tokenization, a token is a symbolic representation of a value. Then you can break it down in million pieces so that the barrier to entry becomes much affordable. The other key advantage of tokenizing real-world asset, besides instant monetization, is the capability to have a fixed asset which is a real-world asset that is tradable and that you can move easily. So it's an easier, more affordable way of accessing, appreciating assets without having to go through a broker, and that you can effectively start purchasing from your mobile phone. If you see the recent case of the digital asset and the flight, I think they were referring to Binance, where $26 billion was moved through digital asset. It proves that the country is actually ready and open to digital asset. But it's even better if we talk about real world asset, because people know the value is backed by something concrete that has shown its capacity in history, and it gives a title deed, a digital certificate of ownership. That's why GIFT, our Gold International Fungible Token, was a first step towards starting tokenizing other type of assets in the country. And I salute Mofi Incorporated, who has already started working on, gathering the key assets of the country and finding innovative ways to kind of create access to ownership for the population, and value this wealth that has remained untapped so far. And technology is a huge opportunity for Africa to leapfrog. Remember, we leapfrog fixed line through mobile money. Right? And today, Africa is at a crossroads where we have the opportunity to build and to innovate and embrace the future of finance by tokenizing real-world asset. In our case, it's not just a discourse, or it's not just an idea. We've done it. We have a wallet, UTribe wallet, that is available on App Store, Google Play, that has been approved by the biggest technology companies in the world. And our gold is certified LBMA, and it's stored in some of the best vault, and it's audited, so you can have proof of reserves where you can verify through third party that the gold is effectively there. And we work with some of the biggest partners in the world and have, as key investor, one of the largest venture capital funds in the Silicon Valley with 500 Global, and our activities are expanding, and it's so important as an African here in front of you today to come and have this message. This is an opportunity that we cannot afford to miss. We have the opportunity to address the mismatch between illiquidity, that some call poverty, and wealth, which is asset rich, what we have, by bridging with technology and tokenizing those assets and bringing into everybody's hands through their mobile phone. And that's really where the revolution is starting. And Nigeria sits at a very prominent position to become a global leader should the country embrace this innovation in this technology to effectively, finally monetize this amount of wealth that remains untapped. And for how long have we heard, oh, we're so rich, but we're so poor? We have an opportunity to end this today. And that's why we started with gold, right? So think of 1 year ago, right? Personally, if every Nigerian has had a gift, a gold international fungible token in their hand, inflation would be a joke because they would be 233% richer. If gift was available 5 years ago, they would be 633% richer just by keeping it as a savings instrument in their wallet. And that's where the revolution is coming. Finally, we have an opportunity as a people, as a nation, as a continent, to finally monetize and benefit from the wealth we're sitting on. And we cannot afford to wait any longer before embracing this technology. And that's why the Ubuntu tribe comes in as a global leader to show the way and embark as many forward-thinking leaders and a population that is in strong need to preserve their wealth in such a turbulent time for the economy of the country and the continent.
Mamadou Toure, founder of Ubuntu Group, thank you so much for joining us on Newsday.